give you some advice, but we normally recommend that. We did have a question here about recommendations for a Slate tablet PC. Really, right now, there's no particular Slate that I am recommending. We've got a few people using the InMotion ones. I think it's the model 1400 or 1500. Seems to work fairly well. There's a bunch of good ones out there. There's no one Slate design that I really like better. Next question was also on tablet PCs. We're going to skip over that one. If one wants to eliminate charts, what device would you recommend for scanning records? You basically you need a scanner. Now, as far as paper scanners, there's some good models out there. The one that we typically would recommend for an office is from a company called Fujitsu, and the model, I believe, is the FI6130. They have a very popular model called the SnapScan, which is about $200 less than the one that I just mentioned. The problem with the SnapScan is it does not have what's called a Twain interface. Most practice management software, image software, if you want to scan directly into the program, requires that Twain interface. What the SnapScan does is it will allow you to create it as a PDF file, but that's going to add an extra step because now you've got to create the PDF and copy and paste it into the document center or wherever it's going. So for the paper scanner, go with the Fujitsu. That will not work for images. You are still going to need the a film scanner separately to do that. Do I have an opinion on the PerioVision software? I don't know a lot about the software. That was, I believe that's the stuff that Shine took over recently. It was developed, I think Bruce Lieberthal developed those back in the day with Discus Dental, and there's PerioVision and EndoVision and OMS Vision. I'm not going to comment on them because I really don't know a lot about them. We have offices clients that are using it, and I don't remember hearing any complaints about them. But as I said earlier, when it comes to practice management software, it's a really subjective process. And one thing that I should have mentioned is that when you're going through that process, involve your staff because they're the ones that have to deal with it every day. A lot of the dentists that I work with don't even know how to turn the computer on. So make sure you involve the staff with that. How do you integrate imaging software with an online practice management software like Curve? That's a good question. I believe Curve and the other ones out there, there's other web-based software, really at this point don't have full-featured image management programs. And I think what you're going to see is some type of bridge program. Aptrix and XDR use something called a data grabber or a name grabber. And the way that it's probably going to work with Curve, I'm not sure if it's fully developed quite yet. I know other ones out there do something like this, is that you're going to basically store all your images locally on your server during the day, and then at nighttime those images will be uploaded to their server so that you'll have access to them by the next day. That to me is really the only system that makes any sense because image management is going to be, the image files are quite large, so it has to be done I think on a once-a-day basis versus a consistent basis. Okay, just moving along here. Can I address, again, the wireless versus wired operatory computers? We have offices that want to go wireless for various reasons. We have found that when it comes to practice management software, for the most part, it seems to work okay. With wireless, you always have the potential for interference. You're going to have issues with microwave ovens, with fluorescent lights. But where we seem to have some issues is with images, because those files are significantly larger than the practice management software data. That data is usually just text data. Images can be 1 meg, 2 megs, multiple megabytes each, and we're finding that especially if you're, say, trying to bring up a full mouse series onto a screen, what would take maybe 2 seconds with a wired connection can take 30 or 40 seconds wireless. So because of those reasons, I would typically recommend that you stick with wired if you can, because wireless definitely has some pitfalls that are associated with it. I had a question here about my opinion on Dolphin and where they're headed. Well, they're part of Patterson right now. Mixed feelings about Dolphin. I really don't want to say anything negative about any of the companies out there. I think for what the software does, it's really fantastic, but I really don't want to give any opinions based on my personal experiences with companies. It's a good product. Don't get me wrong. It's a good product. I get concerned whenever I see products being bought out by larger companies, and there's nothing wrong with that process. It's just you don't know what's going to happen down the road. So I think those are valid concerns, but who knows? Is there a diagnostic quality difference between sensors and phosphor plate systems? And the basic answer is no. Of course, the sales reps for the sensor companies are going to tell you differently. But in my mind, if you scan in your phosphor plates at a medium or a high setting, which means you're not going for the fastest setting, but going at a somewhat diagnostic setting. And if you were to take two images, one from a phosphor plate and one from a sensor, put them side by side on the same 17, 19-inch monitor, and assuming everything else is the same, the patient software, et cetera, you will not see any difference. I would say right now with our offices, and we've set up about 1,350 offices over the years. I would say for the offices that are digital, it's about a 3-to-1 ratio of hard sensors to phosphor plates. So about a quarter of the people out there are using phosphor plates. Phosphor plates are obviously a great option for pedo practices. We have very few pedo offices that are using sensors and $6,000 sensors and kids don't always mix all that well together. So certainly that is something to consider as well. Okay, next questions. We currently have a DMS and have used it for many years. We would be better served to go with a web-based system or other system that you recommended. You know, it's a tough question. You know, if you're asking me to predict what's going to happen down the road, I think all software, whether it's dental or any software for that matter, will probably be web-based in some form. Do I know that for sure? Do I know when it's going to happen? No. But basically, if you have a dental practice management software that's working for you, that serves your needs, that can allow you to go to that next level, and as I said, usually more often than not, you're going to be using third-party add-on programs to get there. But as long as it meets your needs, there's no reason to change. And that's one thing to be aware of. There's a lot of times offices that are looking at digital x-rays, for example. The rep will come in and say, oh, well, if you want to get our digital x-ray system, you really should get our practice management software as well. To me, that's probably one of the most traumatic things you can do to an office is to change practice management software, because you've got data conversion issues, training issues, downtime. You have to be really convinced that what you've got is just terrible and what you're going to is the best thing ever. So don't take that decision lightly. We've seen offices lose very valued staff members because of something like that. So be really careful of that. Next question, will the stimulus money that may be available in 2011 be retroactive? Say if you spend the money in 2010, will be reimbursed? To my understanding, no. I believe they're going to phase it in as well. It's something like $18,000 the first year, and it's phased out from there. That's a really good question. I don't think they're going to have any systems in place that actually allow you to certify whether you've gone paperless or not until 2011, so I think it's kind of a moot point, but time will see. Can I comment on intraoral cameras, software integration? You know, I didn't have a lot of time to talk about it in this webinar. I'm certainly going to talk about it in future webinars. To me, unfortunately, intraoral cameras are like, you know, the ugly stepchild. I mean, they just aren't getting any love, and that's too bad because of all the technology out there. In my mind, intraoral cameras have the best, the quickest, the longest return on investment. You're getting your money back, even with expensive cameras, in usually a matter of days, not weeks, not months. Typically, almost all of intraoral cameras work. Most of them that are coming out nowadays are USB cameras. You're going to find there are some limitations. It's very similar to the situation with sensors, that you really need to make sure that you're going to have the compatibility of the camera, especially for the USB camera. Most of the cameras are now USB. They're getting away from the capture cards and analog cameras, but certainly that is one thing to keep in mind as well. What's a great scanner for digitizing written documents? I already talked about that. The Fujitsu FI 6130, I believe, is the model number. Hard sensors or plates. So the cost of the sanitary covers for plates make their cost over time higher than sensor systems. That's a good question. We've never really sat down and done a cost comparison for what each system costs an office in the long run, because you've got pros and cons, because you know the sensors are going to have higher costs for warranties. They're going to break down a little more often, but certainly there's going to be more consumable costs with the phosphor plate systems. My gut feeling is it's probably a wash in the long run. As I said, when you're choosing digital X-ray systems, I would usually recommend staying away from the cost comparisons, comparing one versus the other or versus film. I think there's a lot of other really good reasons to go digital than the money that you're going to be saving. Okay, next question. How do you effectively review patients' charts as you are quickly moving from room to room without doing it in front of the patient, having to go to another room to do it? That is why I am a huge fan of multiple monitors in the operatory. I would say probably 80 to 90% of the offices that we have set up over the years have been dual monitor. We've actually had a few that have gone 3 monitors and 4. I don't typically recommend it. I think most offices can get by fine with 2. You're going to have a monitor that's out of the patient's line of sight. for bringing up the treatment plan, for bringing up, for example, you really don't want to bring up your schedule with all the other patients' names on it in front of the patient. That is definitely a HIPAA no-no. So you're going to need that second monitor. That's really the only solution to that. To add a second monitor, if you don't already have it, is not a major expense. You're talking about a monitor that's going to run you about $175 to $200, maybe a couple $100 for a mount